Got him, Matt. Got him.
Yeah, yeah. I've been swimming in Canada. Yeah. We didn't think about it. We went to but thanks for your.
Not like I have you
Backtrack all that.
I was wondering why he's like, you guys were back there.
All right, welcome to everyone around the world. Those of you who are in this space, we are going to be having a rap session with people on the other side of the camera looking at us through the computer. And they can send me an email at liverap@ggwo.org. Liverap, all one word, at ggwo.org. And Pastor Matti is here, and he can speak of things that he wants to speak. You can ask him a question, or 7, if you want, right? Is that okay?
What's that?
They ask you questions?
Sure, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, and if you're in this audience and you want to ask a question, we can hand you the microphone. You can certainly ask questions about the message we heard tonight, or anything that you might have heard during the convention. If you're asking a question here or making a comment here in the audience, keep it brief, because, you know, you got people watching on the internet and they want to hear. Okay? So liverap@ggwo.org, that's your email address. Email a question and I'll pose it to the panel. If you'd like to make some opening comments, go ahead. Here's a microphone for you.
All right. Yes. Hi, everybody. Greetings from Canada. I just arrived from Canada. We had a great meeting there in Toronto, and a great group of believers. Had also a great time of outreach also. It was just a long trip. So if I say something uncontrolled, it's because I've been sitting in the car for 10 hours. But this morning was beautiful. I mean, every morning it's like a new gift from God, right? And I just want to recall what we had this morning. We had our morning thought, and I shared from the Word of God, and we prayed together. But sometimes this happens that when you wake up, a Bible verse comes to your mind. Has it ever happened to you? I'm sure it has. Isn't it beautiful Like, to wake up that way, that you have a thought from God right away. Like nothing else happened, you didn't have time to do anything or think about anything else, and just the word of God comes. And I want to wake up every morning that way, don't you? Like, just wake up and God gives you a thought right away. And the thought that God gave me this morning was just that He has refined us like silver. And it was just so strong to me that God has refined us, and God is refining us. That's from Psalm 66, verses 10, 11, 12, 13, I think. It has like this explanation that God has done something that looks bad in a way in our lives. He has tested us. He has put us through fire and water, and He has, put burdens on our back, and He has let men ride over us, over our heads, and all those things. But then it comes to a conclusion, like all is kind of wrapped together, and in the end of as the conclusion, it says that, but He has brought us to a place of abundance, or actually in my New King James Version it says to a place of satisfaction, I think. Anyways, the idea is that, but there is this abundance, and this is amazing that God has, right at the moment of salvation, put a treasure into all of us, but then it takes a lifetime to refine that. And the way how God refines us like silver is that, the idea is that the silver is heated up, and then, all the infirmities come to the surface, and they are removed, and someone used this picture saying that, God knows when it is ready, when He looks at it and He sees His own picture in it. And I like that thought that God is heating up our lives, and what is He using for that? He's using mostly people, really. How does God refine us? I think He's using mostly people. And when we say that God uses people in our lives, we have, of course, this thought that God uses these mature, amazing people, they who always have the right answers, and who always know how to minister with sensitivity and so on. But it's a surprise that God actually uses even more the other kind of people. the pain in the neck, the troublemakers, those ones who are very irritating, annoying, and seemingly God uses them to refine us. And it should not surprise us when it happens. And this is our testimony that we are in a very interesting place where, like one Bible school student in Baku, I remember, he had this amazing revelation. He said to me that, I have learned this one thing about Christianity, that everything is very bad and everything is very good in the same time. That's Christianity. And I said, wow, that's like the Spirit of God has told you that. This is exactly what it is. You have taken us through water and fire and let men ride over our head and put burdens on our backs. But you have brought us to a place of abundance. Yeah. So that's my greetings from Toronto.
Yeah, greetings from Bombay. And I just was thinking last week and after the convention, God is so much into small things. And if we are not so tuned with God, we miss sometimes how God is doing small things in our lives, And He takes care of things in our lives and moves. So it's sometimes we see, we just want to see only bigger pictures, but God is there in things which we don't see sometimes. And then we understand the presence of God is so much in our lives. We see God in small things which He does in our lives. And being a missionary, you always know that God is there in every step and every step that you take. And he's doing things just like how Pastor was sharing today. He nearly came to the airport, and the airline said, "You just can't go on the aircraft." It happened to me once. At least he was asked $800, but the lady who was with me, she said, "Your flight ticket is not valid." And I'm flying to Bombay. I'm at the airport. She says, you got to pay some $3,000 for the flight. And I was like, stuck. And I said, "I don't have that money." She says, "You can't go." I said, "It's my flight. I'm on time and everything." Then I had to call up the airline agency. I had to call up the sales manager, the main manager of Delta Airlines. And how did I do it? I can't even figure out because I didn't have a cell phone, so I've got to go to the public phone. And that lady tells me, "Call that airline agent on the public phone." So I came here, there. And in the end, she told me from the main car representative, she said, "Your ticket is valid." And that lady, she's saying is not true. So I was like so relieved at the airport. But this can happen to any one of us. But we know God is there and faithful in things like that. So, yeah.
All right, friends, we want to welcome you from around the world. You're watching us on the internet tonight, and we do have a way for you to tell us what you're thinking, and that's via the email, and the email is liverap@ggwo.org. So if you have a question for Pastor Matti, Pastor Melvin, we'd love to hear from you. If you're in the audience here, you want to make a comment or question, we do have a microphone. You can come right here to the steps and address your question to the esteemed panel that we've assembled tonight. So, and if we don't get any questions, we'll say shucks and go home. Pastor.
I just have a question for Pastor Matti. One of my best friends here, he's going to Turkey, he's been in Turkey, and he's told some incredible stories about different people that are there from in the Middle East specifically. And he told stories about the price they've had to pay to be in Turkey and to be Christians and the persecution they get. So I was wondering if you could speak on that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very real, and the Middle East is a very interesting place altogether, because all Christian history, all Bible history is there, and it's obviously a very special area and place. And now with all this craziness happening there, like it's some people go really fast in interpreting the prophecies and this and that, and this is here happening, this is that, and then they change everything because it didn't go so well, and it gets very messy. And like we saw it, especially with the Syrian situation, that the media is also so lost, with world politics, and we were so lost because I had people, my Syrian friends, visiting one evening, and they were very clear about one side of the story. Then the next evening I had another group of friends from Syria. They were totally, and we are there in the middle, and we are kind of looking for the right voice for us. And a lot of Christians are leaving the Middle East, which is not necessarily a good thing. it's understandable that people want to escape and for their security. And Syria also, a lot of Christians have left, and it's a very complicated picture. And the same with Iran also, that of course continually a lot of Iranians leave, and it's like almost like a pattern that if a person becomes a believer right away they leave. But there are others who stay by conviction, and I'm by no means saying that the ones who leave are less spiritual believers than the ones who stay, because each one of us, we have our own call from God, and we need to be firm in that what God tells us. Because earlier when I ministered in those areas, I was a younger pastor, and I was very strong in this conviction that people should stay there. They should not move out from these countries. That's not the idea. That's not why we do mission work, especially because we were approached all the time by people who would be asking us to help them, escape or move out or get a visa here and there. And I was very firm that they know they should stay, and they should stay and be the witness there. And what's the idea if they leave all move to America or to Europe? Like who's gonna be there? And that continues to be my question. But as I saw more and more complicated situations, and I understood that I cannot be so categorical in that people have different calls. And some people are really called to leave, and some are not. And the ones who stay there, I pray, when I pray for the Middle East, I pray daily for wisdom. I pray for wisdom for all the pastors, because they are responsible. How are they going to teach their people in these horrible conflicts? Because it's really, neighbor against neighbor, and, family members against family members, and a lot of this craziness, demonic, aggression, and violent situations, and people's lives are in danger. And in the same time, we know that we are called to minister in this kind of a situation. Right before I came here in Istanbul, I was invited to be part of a pastors' meeting that was sponsored by an organization whose leaders I know, and they wanted me to be a part of it because it was Ukrainian and Russian pastors who have a voice in their countries, very influential Christian leaders, and they were brought together in Istanbul, maybe 30 of them. And they were looking for God's voice, in this conflict situation, because it's not easy. The Ukrainian situation is not easy for any of the Ukrainians or Russians who are with our ministry. And we really need God's wisdom in that. And for me, it was beautiful to see these pastors, that they were really spiritual men, and they were honestly looking to be the voice of God. And they all, when they spoke about their people, and not as a nation, but their church as their people. And I think that's God's heart. That's God's heart, and that's what is so important in ministering in these end times, wherever we are. That kind of demonic, aggression can burst up anywhere in the world. We live in that kind of times. There's no guarantee that it doesn't happen in our neighborhood. And then when it happens, it's not like rational, humanistic, reasoning, religious ideas. It's not enough. You need to have spiritual discernment and also other spiritual qualities such as patience and tolerance, and these are spiritual abilities that God gives us, and then it enables us to minister in those situations. And And I think that yes, people are in danger, and some people are in danger, some are not in danger. When it comes to Iran, for example, it's a very dangerous country, but in the same time, it's full of people, and the people live their daily life there. The same with Syria, you know, even though these pictures that we get from media, it looks like the whole country is a big battlefield, but that's not true. People continue their life, and spiritual church leaders need great wisdom. So I ask you also to pray for that the leaders would be able to teach their people and have a voice from God, the voice of wisdom in those situations, because they are not simple answers. They are not just simple, like, you know, black and white answers, but we need spiritual solutions. And God has called us to continue ministering, not just leaving it, but to minister in those circumstances. And also, like, you know, some people are called to risk their life and go and minister in more dangerous places. And I remember years ago when I was going to the Soviet Union, and I never felt a danger or a fear going there. It just didn't even occur in my mind that it would be dangerous or something. But often when I mentioned that to some others, people thought that it's like dangerous and so on. But when I was there, God kind of blinded me to that. But I remember speaking to this one man in the University of Moscow, and he was an atheist, and he was touched by God. But then he said to me that don't you understand that when you speak to people about God, you put them into danger? And he was right in that. Logically, it's true. It would be easy, in a way, like more right, not to speak to them, and then they would have no danger. And I don't remember what I answered, but I know that we had that conviction that even though that's true, even more so we should speak. And this is how I think that ministering in the world is not going to get easier if you are waiting for to become a missionary when things get easier. So just forget. Probably you're not called to be one, and the freedom and the like really the riskless ministry, it's not going to be there. I think it's going to be more and more risky and more challenging. And again, I want to emphasize, you need more and more wisdom, really, like supernatural wisdom, not just natural reasoning, but cannot count on your experience. You need supernatural wisdom from God, and it comes from your walk with God, if you walk with God.
Yeah, just give a small testimony. There was, in Bombay, a pastor came. He was actually in a Muslim part of our country, and he had to leave that place because of persecution. And he came to Bombay Church, and I spoke to him. He said he was able to baptize a lot of people. But also he said this, he went to Syria in middle of that whole thing that's going on. And he visited there, and he told me that they were able to lead Syrian soldiers to Jesus Christ. Many Syrian soldiers to Jesus Christ in the middle of the war, you know. So I think sometimes we may think about things going on, but if God is with us, we still can go there and minister in spite of everything that goes on. So he said they were able to go, and he even said, I'll go again there and come back. So he came and visited us in the Bombay church. So.
Okay, questions, comments? Those watching, questions, comments? You can send those to us.
Yes, did you share about Toronto? Yes, I did. Oh, sorry.
You have a question? You can come. You have a microphone. liverap@ggwo.org. That's the email address if you have a question on the internet, if you're watching us. Like I said, if we don't get any questions or comments, we'll say shucks and go home.
I like what you were saying about being refined, and this has been an ongoing process in my life for like several years now. And sometimes I wonder, like, you know, am I so impure that it has to keep on going for so long? And, you know, how much more can be burned off? How much more can be, like, you know, stripped of me before it's finished? And I'm still waiting for the end to come. You know? It's like an amazing thing, like all the things that God brings into your life to make this process happen. And it's different for everyone. And the fire that you go through, or I, and or the water, or whatever someone else goes through, is according to their own capacity, you know, different levels of refinement, but, you know, God knows what we can handle.
Yeah, it's gonna go on. With all of us, I mean, it is, and we hear you exactly what you're saying. We're wondering, all of us, like, you know, and then one day it's gonna be okay, ready. That's it, and we're gonna be in glory. It's amazing, and this is one of our strengths. You know, we were fellowshipping with the guys whom we went to Toronto with, and a lot about missions, and we spoke in the car about the strengths of our mission, you know, in the Greater Grace. And one of the strengths that we understood is with us is the body life and the understanding of the body life that we have learned, we have been brought up with that. And once you have tasted it, you always look for it, and you kind of want to initiate it. And people don't taste that, you know, outside of the body. That life that we experience by being together with born-again believers and fellowshipping in the Spirit, you know, that people don't taste that outside. They can have a cultural, social, and, you know, whatever ethnic, you know, gathering, and that's different because there's a spiritual fellowship in the body of Christ, and this body life is a very important tool in our missions. But also one theme that we spoke about is this question of privacy, which is a very important question in today's world. That it's kind of one of the ethical questions that we cannot avoid as Christians in the world today, and we all kind of choose our level of privacy. How private are we going to be in our lives? How private are we going to be in our ministry even? And this is I'd like Pastor Sally actually to comment on this because this is really something that comes up in the church all the time. Like in different cultures, we have different privacy levels, and some cultures are very private, and people, like, you know, feel that it should not be violated, and in the church also, like, you know, how much do I want people to know about my personal life, or my phone number, my address, and so on. I remember having a conflict, kind of a challenging situation with one of our missionaries, pastors who lived in a city and country, and none of the people in the church knew where he lived, and where nobody had his phone number. And I talked to him about it. I said, I think that this is not what missions is about, because I felt that there was this wrong type of, you know, privacy, and this is an important theme to talk about on missions team also, and when we go together as a team, and when we work together, and then some people have families, some don't, and how private are we with our lives, and where is the balance? So Pastor Shale, maybe you would talk about that.
Wow, well, there were two things that Pastor Monty just mentioned. The first one is the body life, and if we use tonight's message, I have a pull to the earth, or to pull to the earthly things, the love of the world, and then I have the love of the Father. And if I have the love of the Father, then I don't have the love of the world at the same time. There are times when I love the world and I don't have the love of the Father operating in my heart and my life. I'm a carnal Christian if I love the world. But if I have the love of the Father, then I find the freedom from these things that are in the world that control people's lives. And he mentioned body life, and we cited at the end of the message, at the end of the night tonight, that we drink the same Spirit. And in body life, you and I bear witness to the love of the Father. But if you come here, is there something worldly here? And the answer is no. We don't have actually much religious paraphernalia around. We don't have sensual expressions. We don't have money promises. This is not the love of the world. This is the love of the Father. And the Word of God does that. The Holy Spirit does it. And we find ourselves free. And we love it. Well, this is why we love the convention. So this is the first point that Pastor Mati mentioned, which I think is awesome, that we have body life, which is really the love of the Father in our hearts and a heavenly attachment, seeking the things that are above to escape from hell below. If you are risen with Christ, then set your affections on the things above, not on things of the earth. So there's so many Bible references and teachings that we see from the apostle on that subject. We are seated in heavenly places. We love the things that are invisible. We love our calling. We love for somebody to speak to us about our calling. We love a life of faith. People are going back to Turkey, like Pastor Niazi. Pastor Mati is going to Oman. People are going to Europe and Africa, and they're encouraged by the love of the Father, not the love of the world, but the love of the Father. But I also have to say that the love of the world is only a decision away. And I can feed that dog. And as I feed that dog, he gets bigger and bigger. Okay. So if I feed the dog, loving the world, that dog can grow. And I care more about my house, my possessions, my children, my work, my job, my friends, more about my entertainment, my free time, my things in life, and you can feel it. You can feel those things get a hold of people. And then I love it when I deny myself. There's two ways of being rich. One is getting more, and the other is desiring less. And the love of the Father, I desire less of the world, and I'm satisfied more with Him. I really am. Okay, now comes the second part, which is the question. Privacy. I think Jesus was, there's a couple of things to say about it. Jesus was private and very public. When he was private, why was he private? Okay, to be with the Father. Let's come up with another thing. When he was private, why was he private? Well, that's the main thing. To be with the Father and Some other words. Harry? The disciples kind of be exercised in their faith, be without him for some hours or whatever. Okay, fleshly people desiring Jesus to pull from him, desire from him, and maybe he needed or wanted the detachment, because there's no end to carnality and the demands that carnality can make on you. So and when he heard of John the Baptist, his cousin, who was executed, he withdrew into a quiet place. He brought the disciples with him to rest a while. Yeah, resting. This is a good thing. Okay, now go dark side. The dark side. Why are people private for the wrong reason? Hiding. Because they're doing something bad and they don't want people to see them. Can that happen in the ministry? Can a pastor be very public, but he wants his privacy for the wrong reason? What is that reason? I don't want anybody to find out how I really live. I don't want them to know how I really live. And then when you ask them, where do you live? They say privacy. So they use it as a shield to protect them from people finding out what their motive, way of life, habits, and all of that. So you have privacy for a good reason, Christ, and he had nothing to hide. And actually he said, I sanctify myself for your sake in John 17. So in other words, I'm living this way before you so that you will be edified knowing me and watching me. And this is how we want to live also. Like we have an open book. At the same time, if my life was as exposed to the public as it could be, they could wear me out. If my life was exposed to the public as maybe some would want it to be, it may be violating something that I need in order to be more effective in the ministry. Like it could be, I could have people camping out in my backyard, and I need the privacy for quietness, meditation, prayer. And by the way, I am so happy in my life because I get to do the things that I love the most, which is prayer and reading, studying, meditating. I honestly love to do those things. And then also to be with people and outreach and meeting people and being with people. It's like amazing that I am able to do this in my life. I feel very honored that God allows me to do this. But I would also like to say, my life is open, but it can be open to the point where people would be, where it would step over that line. And this is the question that Pastor Monty is asking, which I really don't have much more of an answer than this one. It depends. I believe in privacy, but I think the privacy issue needs to be asked, what is your motivation for being, let's say, so private or so public? Like, I think a pastor could be very, very private, but have good motivation. And that's okay, because that's what's good for him, and he finds it. And I think a man could be very public, and he also could have very good motivation. So I think men are different. I think women are different. I think if the pastor is married, his wife is a big part of that equation, because she may be more of a private person than a public person. And in order for her to survive the ministry, maybe she needs more privacy. And so the pastor needs to know how to live with her for that reason, 1 Peter 3:7. All right, so I don't know if that, does that help you, Pastor, or is that You want to comment on it?
Of course, it helps.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that also, like, the question is about also as a on the mission field, your home, how private is your home, and I have heard different, like, advice in this. Some people are saying that your home should be your home, keep it as your home, don't bring people to your home. Like, or like kind of one extreme that you need the place to rest. But then there is also the danger that the home becomes like an ivory tower that, that I don't want anyone to come, any of the local people to come to my home because they will find out that I have a better refrigerator and, and stuff from another country. And so, and that's also like, a trust thing. Because if there is like really that kind of big difference between the pastor who comes from another country and the living standard, which actually the living standard is a part of our lifestyle, right? So if that difference is very big, then there is a certain level of ministry, but there is another level of ministry is missing. Because it's not honest, or there is no trust in that area. Because no, I have never pastor's home. No, I could no. Like pastor, lives in a castle or in a rich area, and I no, never been invited. And I mean, that's just the question. But those things are powerful communicators, and they kind of reveal a lot of things. They reveal our spiritual commitment and our like really real motives also. And I'm not saying this in a critical way but I am.
I think for many people here, this is like educational, because not everybody has that exposure to different missionary styles. Like some people here have lived in Eastern Europe. Paul and Lati live in Africa. And from my experience with these people, that it's normal. Like the way you live, your house is open, people come and go, and you usually do have a good refrigerator. But, those things are, if you can feel that the native people you need to break the box, break out of the concept, and you are wise enough or loving enough to break that box, and help them.
Like in the beginning when we started in Turkey, I remember Pastor Elsha and Pastor Niasi and I came, and they had a house, apartment, and they were always walking to every place, like, and it took like hours for them to get there because they were always walking, and I said, I'm not going to walk with you guys, I'm going to take a taxi, and, if you want to walk, so you can walk, but I'm going to take taxi every time. So the guys were a little bit like, okay, like that. Then they started asking like, Pastor, are you going by taxi? And then we started riding taxis together, right? Am I right? Yeah. And because money is a big issue in mission work, between different cultures. And to pretend that you don't have money if everybody knows that you have money, or to or to come to a meeting place but get off the taxi like in the previous block, We all know that. I mean, all those you have been on the mission field, you know these techniques, and then you just had to kind of find the. I think that there needs to be that level of privacy kind of defined, but also. I think that transparency should be there all the time, like, not in a strange way, but just we are who we are, and if we had to really hide something like that, then we can question ourselves that what do we think we are doing? Are we really laying down our life, or are we just having our agenda here or something? else than Christian missions, right?
Okay, you're watching the rap. Judy, did you have a question? You were coming.
If you could go back to the persecution issue and apply that to the children, like even if you're traveling from one city to another in the country, so you don't know anything about the children, how do you talk to them about Jesus and keep them safe? Because they might not understand all of the dangers. Do you understand?
Whom are you talking about?
In the prior questions, you talked about persecution and danger both to yourself and to the person that you're speaking to.
Yes.
And it's those persons that my question is about, the children in that country. They're very young who really don't have the concept of the danger of speaking Jesus freely, and also to like the teenager, and just in general, the children.
Yeah, does anyone have a comment on that? Yes, Afros, come. No, come here.
People want to hear you. People want to hear you on the... People in Iran are watching. They want to... What happened to Afruz? There she is.
You remember, I'm from Iran, so when Esther, my daughter, she's right now a teenager, but she was 5 years old, and we had to register her in the kindergarten, and we told the principal we don't want her to learn Quran because we're Christian. So because it was a private school, they said, okay, we can register her, but we are going to announce that so people know she is a Christian. So she had a cross necklace. The second day, her teacher ripped the cross, the necklace, and they announced that this girl is a Christian and she's converted, so nobody can sit with her, nobody can eat with her. And she was so upset, coming home and crying, Mom, why did you tell everybody we are Christian? So I don't have any friend. And for 6 months, every day she would come. She was just upset that the kids want to play, but they always say, don't, oh, Esther, don't be upset. We were told to not sit with you and eat with you. So it was hard. But this is what it takes, We said we are doing in honor of God, and you have to just do what we are telling you. Even she was little, but we didn't want her to live with the lie. And it was difficult. When we left Iran, she never forget that. She doesn't want to remember what a difficult situation she went through. But right now she's a teenager. She treasured that time, and she feels she was brave enough to stay for it.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Afros. That's beautiful. Yeah.
Do you have a question?
This question is relative to Pastor Plunkett's teaching tonight. And my question has to do with mainly 1 Colossians 18. And in the New King James Version it says, and he is the head of the body, the church, who is the beginning, the firstborn from the dead, that in all things he may have the preeminence. And in the NIV, it says, and he is the head of the body, the church. And then it says and then there's a semicolon. He is the beginning and the firstborn from among the dead, so that in everything he might have the supremacy. So here's where the focus of my question is. I think I understand the firstborn from among the dead. What I would like to have made more clear for me to understand is how I read this is that because that he was the firstborn from among the dead, that he might have supremacy, that there was a dependency before he had that supremacy of being the firstborn among the dead, or the preeminence. So I was seeking clarity on that for me to understand. Thank you.
Okay, Pastor Steve, do you have a comment on that?
So, okay. So you're wondering if Jesus had a dependency?
Two questions. Yeah, sorry. First, two is could you explain the firstborn from among the dead?
Well,
I think I understand.
yeah, that's Jesus was the first who ever was resurrected. I mean, well, technically not, because Jesus did resurrect people when he did miracles. So, so he was the first one resurrected who stayed resurrected, never died again. So he's the firstborn from the dead. And what's the second part there?
So in the last part, 18, it says that who is the beginning, the firstborn from the dead, that in all things he may have the preeminence.
Okay.
So,
Well, I mean, I think there was a certain part of his reign, you know, as being a perfect man, the glorified man, he now has taken a measure of authority over what was committed to the first Adam who failed. So, you know, the first Adam failed, introducing death to the human race. Jesus Christ came and died innocent, conquering death for the human race. And so his position and the preeminence over creation fills the spot that God designed Adam for. So Jesus now, you know, he lived his life and he took that place because of the life that he lived and the death that he died. And so it's a complicated theological organizational chart, but man was designed as the head of creation, forfeited that with his fall. Jesus Christ lived an obedient life as a man and then was, you know, gained that, although it was always his, but that spot had to be filled by a flesh and blood human, which Jesus Christ became. So his dependency on the earth was the fact that he chose to live as a man dependent on the Holy Spirit every moment of his life. So his perfect life purchased our pardon and then also raised him to this preeminent place over creation, which is where man was designed to be. Is that good? Okay. Okay. So and so he's the first. You know, it says something, all the Bible sort of comments on the Bible. Lazarus, fourth day, he would start to stink. Jesus, you know, resurrected on the third day, he couldn't be corrupted because of his perfection. You know, and he was risen from the dead. So that's the short answer. There's long books written about some of that, but most of it, that's anyway. Yes?
I just wanted to go back to the part about, make a comment about when we're in other countries or places soul winning, or maybe it's against the law. And I think that, you know, Satan always tries to bring in the fear to keep people either from listening or from speaking. And, you know, I've been in several countries where, you know, the gospel was not allowed, but which is the greater price, like you were saying. Someone asked you, you know, what about the danger to the person? Well, what about the eternal danger of a person's soul? And is not God able to blind eyes that need to be blinded, or just orchestrate circumstances, because it's the Holy Spirit breaking up that fallow ground in a person's heart and preparing them for the gospel. Like God knows people that are, their hearts are prepared, to receive it. And I think we just, obey God and trust that God will direct our steps. And, sometimes it doesn't always work out so well. Or when I was in China back in the 80s, somebody in the church in Hong Kong was apprehended in the mainland and, was abused for several days and threatened, but again, released. And, it's like there's a cost, of course, for the people that receive the gospel, and then sometimes for people, that give the gospel. But I think we just go forward and trust that that's our call and that God will be faithful.
Yeah, and I think it again comes to that question of like wisdom. Just really that, we don't want anyone to be put into danger because of our stupidity or our, carelessness or like our mistake. Of course not. And I think that God just gives us wisdom how to avoid unnecessary danger also. Like, we are not looking for hero stories for ourselves, right? But we are looking for opportunities to minister, and then God gives wisdom. And we really need, what I wanted to say and want to say again is that in these end days we really need more and more to depend on this supernatural wisdom, because things are not what they look like. Things don't go logically. There is a need for supernatural confidence, in that supernatural wisdom from God also.
I just want to add something. In India, we have some states which have enacted the law that you can't evangelize, you can't baptize, and if you want to baptize, you got to have permission from the government. But in spite of all those things that are laws, but in spite of all those things, there are still people who are being baptized, and we still do it, and knowing everything. And also, when I was in Nepal, it was like a closed country at that time. I can't evangelize, I can't soul win. If I'm caught, I'll be put in jail. But I still did it in midst of the whole thing. And I was caught twice or thrice, but I still was, I found out it's just do it, fear is there, but you still have to do it, whatever.
God delivered you, right?
Yeah.
Amazing. I have one question because we're finishing up, and I could direct it to Pastor Matti. In our world, in our everyday life, there are people that say, I'm going to live a good life. I need a good education. I'm going to go. The world is not that bad. I know I go to the church and I hear the church says that the world, love not the world. But I don't love the world, but I can definitely use it because I'm going to live my life. And, this is how normal people live. So then, how would you, like Pastor Shabeli said that some of the African pastors, their children go to universities in Europe instead of going to Bible college to follow their dads, We know in Finland, like education and so on. You know what I'm talking about. So how could people be like you or those people that Pastor Melvin, the people that spoke tonight, Pastor Plunkett, Micah Stambowski, they use their talents that God gives to them for building up the body and promoting the gospel. So what would you say?
Yeah, I think that we can approach that question on this level, or we can kind of go behind it a little bit, and I'd like to go behind it because there is no answer, really one answer on this level, but and it has to do like with things like values. What are the values of my life? Like what are the values that I have accepted and I believe? And then actually those values, they lead to certain convictions, and how important these convictions are to me. Even, a person who is spiritually minded can study in the university and keep his values and keep his convictions, and then of course they lead to a certain lifestyle. And the lifestyle, our lifestyle is very unusual. Like, for example, I'm sure you have family members and relatives who think that you spend too much time in the church, right? Like why are you going to the church all the time? Like, why aren't you like normal Christians who go at maximum once a week? But it's like really impossible to explain to a natural man. Why would I be in the church? It's a certain value that I have accepted in my life. I say to myself that I cannot lose this. I can lose many things, and I probably will, but this I cannot lose. I cannot lose this fellowship with the saints and this flow of life and this moments when God speaks to me, and I'm serious about it. Like, I come to the church and God speaks to me, like right to my life. I mean, God speaks to me those words that I cannot miss. I don't want to miss them. And so with that lifestyle, I think we should plan to be in different places and different, settings and situations. And that might be that I'm a full-time missionary, I'm a full-time Christian worker, but it might be that I'm just doing my, having my position in the world, so to say, but I'm a spiritually minded person, and I'm there until they kick me out, or until, God tells me to do something else. And this is like my thought about the Middle East also, that I wish that people would just stay and be a witness there, because if they don't stay there, who's going to be why should we bring people from other countries there where there are already like people, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's like a more artificial thing to bring somebody who has to study the language for 10 years and still don't learn it, and the culture and so on, when we already have. So we should really also, in our missions strategies, I think we should really think about this, like, how can we strengthen the works that are already there and the believers that are already there, and maybe instead of taking 30 people on a prayer tour into this country, why not to collect all that money and support the missionary who doesn't even have, or a local pastor who doesn't even have a support there in that country. I mean, it's a beautiful thing that 30 people, paid the price for the ticket and, went to this other country and walked on the streets and prayed. And I'm not ridiculing it. I believe in it a little bit, but I want to put it into perspective, and I'm saying that how about finding out what is really going on in that country. There are churches, and maybe the church, really just needs money. Is something wrong with that? No, nothing's wrong with that. But there is that these people need to be kept there. I'm saying this once again because I think that really there might be even bigger waves of people escaping the Middle East, Christians escaping. And what's the result of that? It becomes totally Muslim. I'm kind of careful when I say that, but let's keep people there, and let's pray that people would be able to stay there. But that comes to this question of our identity. If I'm a spiritual person, then I have those values, then I have those convictions, and they are strengthened in me. Then I have a certain lifestyle, and I can stay. And that's the way how I'd like to look at it. But I think that the second generation, third generation in our churches, that is a good challenge. Like, are they going to be as radical as we are? Do we want them to be as radical as we were? Or we were radical, but we want our children to be very, very normal. And if we want them to be radical, how is that going to happen? Because they lived a very normal life, because we lost our radicalism. There is a difference between fanaticism and radicalism. I mean, when you are radical, you are just willing to, change your routine and do something unusual. But when you are fanatic, you have no brain involved. You are just emotional. And I think there's an important difference, really. And I think we are called to be radical. We are really called to be very radical in our lifestyle in this world today. But not fanatic. We are not fanatic. We are thinking with God, and really concerned about that we would be thinking with God and not in the flesh, right? Yeah.
All right, we're going to say goodbye to the people on the internet, so wave to them. Good night. We know you're there, even though you didn't email me the whole time. Don't let that happen again. All right, and we're going to let Cody say goodnight and shut down his machine. All right, thank you. God bless you, and thanks for being with us. You're welcome to come closer and ask your questions face to face.